Hello, it's Steph from Stephanie Stone Cosplay, and today I'm here to talk about all the makeup stuff that I used in 2018. So I'm going to be going over all the products that I've been using throughout the duration of 2018. It hasn't really changed much, and as a disclaimer, I'm not a makeup guru or anything like that. I don't have a huge database of knowledge of makeup, so I'm just going to be sharing what I found worked for me this year and what I'll be using going into the 2019 year. So the stuff that I'll be going over is everything that I use for my face, everything that I use for my eyebrows, stuff that I use for my eyes, and then stuff that I use for my lips. So those are going to be the 4 topics that I talk about today. To start off with the stuff that I use for my face, I've used a couple different primers this year, but currently what I have in stock that I've been using is the Benefit Professional Primer. I feel like this is probably one of the best primers that you can get, and because of this, it does have a fairly high price point. The other primer that I use that's much cheaper is the L'Oreal Paris Magic Perfecting Base. It's a primer that you can get at Target. I believe you can get it at CVS and other drugstores. I'm not 100% certain on that. And then when it comes to concealer and foundation, I tend to use stuff that comes from the same brand, so I've switched over to using NYX's makeup. So for the NYX stuff, the concealer that I use is the HD Studio Photogenic, which is a little tube that looks like this. Foundation that I use is the Can't Stop Won't Stop line. It comes in a little tube like this. I like to use liquid foundation. I found that it works a lot better for me, and the way that I typically apply it is just by using a makeup sponge. So this is my makeup sponge right here. I just cleaned it up, but you can tell there's foundation on it. When it comes to using NYX's makeup, apparently that foundation, I was told by the lady when I was buying it, applies really well with a sponge. So that was an added bonus, and I definitely do agree that I feel like that foundation goes on super smoothly with the sponge. When it comes to contouring and highlighting, I have makeup palettes that I bought a couple years ago, to be honest, probably from BH Cosmetics during their Black Friday sale. So the one that I use for contouring is their 26 color palette. And I believe it's not actually even a contour palette because it just says that it's an eyeshadow and blush palette, but it does have some nice browns on it that I've been using. So this is my palette right here. You can tell obviously which ones that I've been using and their brown tones. Since it is also an eyeshadow palette, I've also been using the other colors like the pinks and gold. I like it because that's pretty versatile. As for highlighting, I don't use anything super fancy. Again, it's from BH Cosmetics, and they don't have this palette anymore when I last checked. It's this Carly Bybel 14 color. It's eyeshadow and highlighter. So I actually shattered one of them, which is really sad, but you can kind of see what it looks like there. They're really nice colors. It's worked well for me. There are other highlighters that I'm interested in trying, but again, this is what I had been using in 2018, so moving into 2019, I'll probably experiment more and make videos about those. Last but not least, the finishing spray that I use again is NYX, because they are a fairly affordable brand that I want to start to familiarize myself with. The other finishing sprays that I have used didn't seem to have that much of a difference that I noticed, to be honest. If anything, the finishing spray just mattifies my face, and that's all I need. I don't think you need to spend so much money to get a really expensive branded one. I think the NYX one works perfectly fine. So when it comes to foundation, sometimes I notice that my face type tends to get a little bit oily at times, and since I use a liquid foundation, that doesn't mix too terribly well, but I like the coverage. So sometimes what I wind up doing is I'll go over my foundation a little bit and buff it with my makeup brush. So this is the makeup brush that I use. It's kind of like a flat round-headed one, as you can see here. So that's the one that I use to buff my face, and the other brushes that I use are these 3 right here. These 2 are the ones that I use for contouring. They're both angled brushes. The bigger one is the one that I use for my cheek, and the smaller one is the one that I use for contouring my nose. This brush right here is the guy that I use for highlighting my face. So this one I usually dust over my cheekbones as well as the bridge of my nose right here. Okay, so that was it for all of the face stuff that I use, I believe. So I'll be moving on to the products that I use for my eyebrows. Just like my contour and highlight kit, I also have another palette that I've been using from BH Cosmetics. This guy right here. This is the Ultimate Brow Palette. I believe this one is still for sale on their website. Looks like this on the inside. You can tell which ones I'm using the most. Clearly, nothing too fancy there. I haven't really branched out because they're shadow pigments and they have a little bit of, I guess, the gel pigment. I haven't really branched out into using brow pomade or anything like that. Hopefully in 2019, I'll be able to experiment using those a little bit more. As for eyebrow brushes, I have 3 that I use, starting with this guy right here. This is my angled brush, which I use for applying most of my eyebrows. eyebrows, I guess. And then the one on the end is a spoolie brush that I use to comb my eyebrow hairs to diffuse the shadow pigmentation, I guess. I don't know how to phrase this. So if you look at my face here, I would typically be using it like right here to sort of like lighten it up so it gets that fade. And then last but not least, I have this tiny like flat-headed brush that I use. And the point for that brush is so that when I'm done applying all my shadows and stuff like that, I'll go back over my eyebrows with concealer to sort of sharpen that up. Another cool important tool that I use is this eyebrow gel, and this is actually e.l.f. brand, which is a pretty great brand. So it's this little guy right here. It's double-ended with gel on them. One's supposed to be for your eyebrows and the other end's supposed to be for your eyelashes, except I don't put mascara on my top eyelashes. To be honest, I'm pretty sure it's the same formula. I just use both ends. But basically what it is that it's a gel to keep all your hair in place. Moving on from eyebrows to eyes, which is my favorite portion of makeup. Like I mentioned before, I do use that BH Cosmetics palette for eyeshadow, but honestly, most of my eyeshadows are from ColourPop. If you guys aren't familiar with ColourPop, it's a brand that I talk about semi-frequently when I'm talking about makeup because I purchase a lot of things from them. I know that they released a foundation line, and that's a line that I really want to try out, but what I am really familiar with are their eyeshadows as well as their lip pigments. I have a whole ton of eyeshadows that has its own tray by my makeup station. There are two that I do use pretty much constantly. These two guys right here. So this red one is the most incredible red pigment that I've ever used. I'll take it out. It's called Baby Talk. I'm pretty sure it's still on their website. I love this thing. This is what I apply underneath my eye all the time. So there's a bit of like a reflective shadow, but you can see like the pigment right there. It's what's located underneath my eye. The other one I don't know the name of, unfortunately, because it comes in one of their flat palettes, so I don't have the name on the back of it that I can reference. This one I love to use as a highlight on the inner corner of my eye. It's hard to see because it's kind of like a whitish yellow, but that's what I wind up using on the inner parts of my eye to kind of open up my eye. Next, I'm going to talk about the eyeliners that I use. The main eyeliner that I use is the Stila Waterproof. So the Stila brand had always been recommended to me, but it wasn't until a couple years ago that I was finally able to get my hands on the product, and I super love it. I obviously am a huge fan of doing the cat eye. Eyeliner is something that I'm super comfortable with in terms of makeup. I feel like that's what I've had the most experience with over the years. I've used a lot of drugstore brands. I think Maybelline. I've used like the crayon. I've used a pencil. I've tried the liquid from the pot. Like most people, my hands are too shaky. I've used gel with a brush, and I like that one for a while, but I feel like this is definitely the number one for me. So if you don't know about this product, it's this felt tip right here, which for me personally makes it super easy for me to apply my eyeliner. Whenever I do makeup tutorials, I'll show you guys how I do my cat's eye and how I get it fairly consistent every time, but this is my favorite, most essential makeup product to use. Next up, another eyeliner that I use occasionally that I actually just recently picked up over the summer of this year is Lush's liquid eyeliner. If you guys don't know, Lush is a brand that is primarily known for their bath bombs, but they also are releasing a makeup line as well. This little guy that I picked up is called Fantasy, and it's their gold eyeliner. I'm actually wearing it right now as well. You can kind of see on the side there. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's super great. I think it's good to use for like a little bit of flair for like anything. I like to use it if I'm trying to brighten up my face a little bit or add a little bit of like sparkle and flair for my cosplays, but a lot of it's just sort of for aesthetic purposes, but it's amazing. I love using it. And then last but not least is the mascara that I use. Like I mentioned earlier, mascara is something that I apply not on my top eyelashes, I only apply it on my bottom eyelashes. The reason for this is because one, the one that I'm using is purple, and two, I put false eyelashes on my top, and I feel like my top eyelashes aren't that intense, so for me personally, I just don't bother with it. But continuing with more details about this guy, this is just like a MAC brand. I'm not super familiar with it, to be honest, because my sister was the one who gave it to me. She won it at some sort of school event, and she doesn't wear makeup, so she handed it off to me, and I really like it, so I've been using it. It's a dark purple color versus black, which is what I'd traditionally been using before, and I found that I actually liked it a lot, especially because I tend to put reddish tints underneath my eye. I felt like the purple complemented it super well, so you'll probably see this guy pop up. Last but not least for eyes, and probably my second favorite next to eyeliner, are false eyelashes. So these are the false eyelashes that I use. I get these from Daiso, so they're only $1. They're great because they come in a pack of 3. This is a line, so there's a couple different other styles in this brand, but this one specifically, number 3, is my absolute favorite. I always hoard them whenever I see them because I go through these a lot. My favorite thing about these lashes is I like how it alternates between the thick patches and the thin patches of eyelashes, and I like how the thin patches crisscross. I felt like it had overall the best aesthetic for enlarging your eyes and making them look anime, but that's just my personal preference. I feel like some people ask me sometimes where I get my eyelashes, and the answer is Daiso. So last but not least, we're going to talk about the lip products that I use. I'd mentioned earlier that I'm a huge fan of ColourPop Cosmetics, so not surprisingly, the two lip colors that I use the most are from ColourPop Cosmetics. So I have 3 lipsticks that I super adore from ColourPop that are my top 3. There's a 4th lip product that's my favorite that isn't ColourPop because it's basically my chapstick. To start off with that one, it's just the Baby Lips lip balm that you can get from anywhere. This one's a red tint. I just like using this one because it's good to moisturize your lip. As for the ColourPop ones, it's going to be these 3 right here. This one's an actual like lippy stick, so you don't see the color unless it's at the bottom, but the camera doesn't want to focus on the bottom, so these 3 are my favorite colors. Going from right to left, the colors are Speed Dial, Bumble, and Bichette. I like using Speed Dial because I feel like it's, for my skin tone, the most neutral colored lipstick. I like that one for pretty much everyday casual wear. I wear that color for the majority of my cosplays because it's such a neutral tone. Bumble isn't a color I wear too often because the shade of pink is a little too intense to be casual. It's fairly obvious that there's a lipstick. It's not as neutral as Speed Dial, but I feel like that pink color complements my skin tone pretty well. So I like having that as an alternative. And the 3rd color, Bichette, is a nice color because I feel like that red tone goes wonderfully. I'm a huge fan of the red tone. That's my go-to red lipstick. I don't use it too often for cosplays, in all honesty, because I don't cosplay a lot of characters that have just straight red lips, but that's my go-to for sure. And with that, you hopefully have an idea of pretty much everything that I've been using makeup wise for the year of 2018. So this is also going to be the makeup kit that I'll be running with for the beginning of 2019. The one thing that I didn't mention that I do like to use is finishing powder, because the finishing powder I used to use was Lawrence's Hard Candy translucent powder, but it's been misplaced, so I don't actually use it right now. That is something that I want to get back into using in the future, but that would be something that I use in my face routine. Moving into 2019, there's a lot of other makeup products that I'd like to try, like I mentioned before, ColourPop. As we go into 2019 and I make more makeup videos, I'll let you guys know all the products that I'm using, and I'll be sure to highlight if I'm using something that's new. If you guys have any further questions about the makeup stuff that I use, if there's anything that I can clarify, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully this is informative for you guys, and if you guys don't have any makeup, gives you some sort of basis for things that I guess I would recommend, because this is what I use. If you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.